no hate if you're a cis male gamer. There's just a lot of you. And I'm very tired.
Hello, and welcome to Author's Note.
Don't listen.
My name is Cass.
And my name is Tease.
And it's me, Nica.
Nica!
We got Nica back.
Back.
We got Nica back again.
Back again.
Welcome.
Tell a friend.
Nika's
It's me.
back. Nika's back.
Nika's back. Nika's wearing purple. Nika's here.
Oh, dude, it's a Cat Gang sweater from Dodgers Company.
Ooh.
I've had my eye on this for a while.
Nika wearing that Twitch merch.
Yeah,
wow.
dude, and look how fun it is. Like, the artist has like a Twitter
really
and everything. I think there's something on the back too, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want. It's too
Sounds
hard.
of Nika struggling to turn around in gamer chair.
No.
You can't. Okay, so you can kind of see it, but there's shit all over my desk because I had to move everything. So I'm like,
We had
This is
some
great
technical
audio.
difficulties. So we've already recorded this episode once, and it was 2 hours long, and it was a lot. But we're back because it was destroyed in a horrible, terrible infestation of worms that overtook us, and they came up from the ground, and the spice flowed, and it was worm time.
my house was
Worm time.
swarmed by cave crickets, and I had to evacuate the building.
I know how much you love cave crickets.
Yeah, I would have one in a heartbeat as a pet.
It occurs to me that if you didn't listen to our little voice actor challenge game episode, you have no idea who Nica is, but Nika's my dearly beloved friend and child. Birthed them from my own forehead, much like, was that Zeus?
Yeah,
Kronos?
with Athena. No, it's Zeus with Athena, right? Athena came out of Zeus's forehead.
Well, that's what you're like for me, Nica. You came right out of my forehead.
That makes me feel so special. Thank you.
Oh, I love you.
Non-ironically, it makes me feel very special.
Oh, plucked you right out of there like a little
Like a
dilated pore.
Athena is an angry lesbian, and I can sympathize with about 90% of that. So I think it tracks.
Okay. Nica, have you consumed or read or watched or tasted anything recently
Okay,
that
so,
you'd like to share
all
with
right.
the class?
We're gonna get out of the way. Okay, so So I started reading I'm just gonna call it the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black.
Mhm.
I progressed further in the second book. I've been flying through these, and I was reading it in bed. I made a tweet about it. I was reading in bed, and I was like, I'll just get a couple more pages in. And then the
Foolish.
hottest fucking sex scene I've ever read in a long. Granted, I haven't read things in a while, so
This is me reading Fangs like last year. My meltdown reading Fangs.
I was like, I started off like in my bed with my weighted blanket, all cozied up and reading, and then I ended, and I sent a picture of what my face looked like to Kit, and Kit
This is an audio medium.
I know, this is for you guys. This is purely for you. I was
This is the Nica medium now. I've been there.
I was having a moment. It was so intimate, and it checked off everything I liked in all of my stuff.
Tasty.
This is where you finally discover that you actually love YA and that you need to read more of it, and you just thought it was something entirely different than it actually is.
Wait, Cass, tell your MLM story.
Your pyramid scheme story?
No.
Yes.
I went to the bookstore today, and I haven't been there in a while, but I walked up to the manager, and she is a delightful lad, I will say. And I said, I would really like to get some dark fantasy. I would like for it to be queer, preferably MLM. And there was a new guy who was working there that was sat next to her, and she was like, yeah, let me Google some things really quick, but go and try and find these titles. And I was like, okay. So I turn around to look at the shelves, and I hear him in the background go, multi-level marketing? And she's like, no. Men loving men. Or MLEMs.
Mlem.
It was very good.
MLMs.
Or she said the Wulbles.
That's me.
Yo, this book has
Wooloos.
Wooloos. This book's got
Wooloos.
Wooloos in there. It's my birthday. It's my birthday today.
Oh my god, yeah, wait,
Happy birthday! I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize. It's fine.
I bungled it.
Don't apologize. It's my birthday today. So I want to every birthday I'm like, I need to recreate the feeling of what it was like to enjoy a birthday.
Oh.
I watched a movie called The Game today, and it was by the same director as the movie Seven, which if anyone likes Jim Carrey knows that was Jim Carrey's favorite movie that he was ever in, but it was bad. It's a bad movie. I haven't seen it.
Wait, Jim Carrey was in Seven?
I think so.
No.
Seven is What's in the Box?
What's in the box?
Brad Pitt?
I got those movies mixed up. I got that. Well, anyway, yeah, he made the movie Seven. I don't know what that is, but the name of the director. I can't remember his name. It's about a banker who he enjoys a game, I guess, and it was 2 hours long. I knew nothing about it. I rarely go into things blind. I just wanted something like, I used to walk into my dad watching like West Wing, and this kind of felt like in that genre, and just like.
So you just need to watch more Sorkin stuff then.
Yeah. Oh, he loves it.
Because every Sorkin property has the exact same dialogue in it.
Know it. So I'm sitting in there, I'm like playing Animal Crossing, watching the game. And Nolan was with me. My brother was with me, and he was supposed to go get my cake. And he's like, I'm just gonna take a nap. This movie was so fucking buck wild, he didn't sleep. And I put down Animal Crossing, and it was like,
wow.
It's not even like necessarily good. It's just like, it's just like there's no way that they could plan for this contingency, and then they do, and you're like, how? How
did they know? How did they know?
How do they know? How do they know? And the whole time, I won't spoil it, I guess, but like bad things happen to the main character, and at the end, everyone's like, "Surprise! This was all part of the package you ordered," because it was like part of a thing he bought, and it was like no amount of congratulations and backpacks and happy birthdays would ever make me get over that. I'd be like, I would trust no one. Because everyone would be in on anything ever again in my life. Like,
did you confuse Seven with Truman Show?
No, I did not. There's a movie with Jim Carrey that has a number as the title. And it was
23.
Like... Yes.
All right. Tease, have you watched anything that you want? Shit.
It doesn't help I've seen either of those. I have no idea.
Oh my god, Nica. I went to go see Ghostbusters Afterlife this weekend.
Hell yeah.
And it was a little disappointing, gotta admit. It was fun, and then at the halfway point, children get sent to jail, and the cop asks, "Who you gonna call?" And I said, "Oh, no."
The T-sleeving brigade. The T-sleeving the theater brigade.
And it then became reference after reference after reference of Ghostbusters jokes. And at some point,
if listeners want to know how we feel about references, you should listen to our Ready Player One episode.
It literally felt like I was in, like, real life Ready Player One hell. Like, it was rough, and unfortunately I was having a really good time in the beginning, and then I don't want to give spoilers, so I won't give stuff away, but like it just became like, how can we mention the original movie and the original movie's lore as much as possible? And, like, it stunk because the first half of it was, like, actually pretty strong, so I was enjoying it, and it felt like it was still a part of the universe, but its own movie and its own thing, so I was really enjoying it, and then that happened. And then I watched literally, sometimes when I suffer through a really bad movie or a really good movie, I end up going home and then watching another movie to
cleanse your palate.
Yeah. Cleanse my palate, yeah. So, like, I think the most powerful time was when I watched Doctor Strangelove and the Fred movie back to back.
Is Doctor Strangelove? Oh shit, the Nazi movie.
I killed Gas.
Wait, what did you watch back to back?
Doctor Strangelove and the Fred movie.
As in,
Fred from YouTube.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Anyway, so after I came home from seeing Ghostbusters Afterlife, I watched White Melody of Death, which is a 2011 Korean horror film that is about the K-pop industry, and one of the girls from Tiara is the main character in it. So I really enjoyed that. It wasn't like great or groundbreaking, but I had a fun time watching it. So that's what matters. And I started watching Succession again, which is pretty cringe, but I love a sad, pathetic little meow meow, I guess.
What is Succession?
What about you, Cass?
When you think about it, Succession and Final Fantasy XIV are pretty much the exact same property.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
I've never seen
How?
Succession.
What?
I've never seen Succession.
Good. Yeah.
Final Fantasy XIV is just like the game by
Yeah.
so-and-so.
Guy who's
I'm
not
sorry, I
only-
thought you were making an early aughts reference, and it was supposed to be like, oh, you all just lost the game.
Oh, yeah,
and
you
I was
can't-
going to leap through my webcam to
That
throttle
was
you.
literally before the wiki article for that movie was the wiki article for the game, The Phenomenon from the early 2000s. That superseded
I don't
the
miss
film.
that.
No, I don't either.
God.
Miss that.
I don't.
Anyway, I've been watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. It's great. Highly recommend. Really, really enjoying it. Fantastic stuff. I haven't
I'm so
watched
glad.
it before. I'm very familiar with the original series. Don't at me about it. Don't. Nobody talk
Cass,
to
are you
me.
gonna watch? Are you gonna watch Silver Spoon after this, or read Silver Spoon?
No, I'm actually kind of planning on watching Wolf's Rain afterwards.
Hell yeah.
Okay, I understand, but Silver Spoon is good.
Not
and-
everything is about your little moo cows.
Actually, they make pizza, and okay, wait, there are a lot of cows in it. It's really good.
Have you watched Bram Stoker's Dracula yet?
No, I haven't. I'm busy recording this podcast episode for the second time.
You gotta watch it soon.
Nica, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about keyboards.
Yeah,
The lack of enthusiasm.
I want to talk about.
absolutely rejected.
I want to talk about Bram Stoker's Dracula so bad with you.
Well,
but
that's not what the episode topic is.
I know.
We
you
can
know?
talk about that later.
Okay. I'm gonna tell, dear listener, I love you. And we're gonna go,
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
take your little hands, your little hands,
My little paws.
and I'm gonna walk you through the world of mechanical keyboards. This is, the way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna tell you about what the diddly dang darn is a keyboard anyway, because it's important to know so that you can understand. If you had even an inkling of curiosity as to if I want a keyboard, if you Google that, you're going to see a lot of weird terminology that I didn't think made any sense. So I'm here to explain all that so that you too can get yourself a sexy, clickety clacky friend for your desktop. So
Thank you.
we're going to start off with a brief history on the keyboard. Where the heck did she come from? Where did keyboards come from? Well, you already know. Typewriters, baby. They are the grandfather of the keyboard, and if you think about a keyboard and like how your keys are laid about, if you, dear listener, look at your keyboard, you will notice that nothing is in alphabetical order, and you may think, wow, that is odd, and that is because they once were.
I'm just thinking of everyone who listens to this in their car on the way to work, and it's like,
Don't look at your keyboard if you're driving. don't look at your. I actually don't know if the phone keyboard is. It's probably in the same. It's just like mushed
It
together.
is.
the
Yeah.
phone
QWERTY.
keyboard is also QWERTY.
So originally,
Can you imagine if it wasn't? Well, it wasn't for a while, was it? When we had the numpad, yeah, and it was
Yeah.
the ABC
Yeah.
methodology.
So
The Wii.
originally,
ones.
teletype typewriters would branch off into teletypers, which were like early 70s, late 60s kind of thing. And the first one to hit the public conscience was the Teletype Model 33, which was designed, of course, for the United States Navy. Nobody else. Just our good
Just
old
the
Navy.
Just the Navy.
1963.
In the Navy, you get to use a
You can sell
teletyper.
7 Cs.
And a teletyper is essentially, it's an early computer. It could send and receive messages back and forth. They originally had alphabetical keys, but the typists were like, this is not, I mean, it's doable, but a lot of the keys that I tend to use the most in the English language, which I can't name off the top of my head, are like weirdly spaced out. So they slowly transformed into being what we know them today, the QWERTY or QWERTY layout, which is designed for Latin script alphabets. And 2 little fun facts, dear friends. The Z and the S are close together for Morse code. What about Morse code? I have no fucking clue, but it has to do with Morse code.
Aren't they interchangeable on the
Morse code? They're both, because Morse code is like binary. It's like 2...
Yeah. Bits and dots.
Yeah, it's much easier to send things if they're just right next to... They're not necessarily next to each other. They're like adjacent, but they're nearby.
Understandable.
And for a long time, people thought that the layout was because they had... It's such a funny... Like, I get it. People think that it's a common misconception that the letter layout was meant to slow down typing operators to prevent the typewriters from jamming. But I feel like if that were the case, there would be another way for them to do that other than try to slow down the typists. like I don't know.
We've been watching Janice for hours. These are the letters she uses the most. Let's put them in the most inconvenient locations for her to reach.
That way, we'll save so much money on typewriters. It's like, I feel like you could have put a cog in there or something. I don't know how typewriters are made.
Put some sort of like more resistance on the lever or something. Like really make them work those fingers.
Exactly.
Slap them.
So we didn't rearrange keys to slow down typists.
We did not.
That's folklore. It's false.
Yes.
Janice could not be stopped even if they tried.
She's just too powerful.
She's just too powerful.
If anything, they probably eroded the keys really fast with their little fingies. So after the 60s, early 70s, late 70s, early 80s, we start to transfer to computer terminals, which if you think of every Robert Zemeckis film you've ever seen, which is probably like none.
War Games.
Yes, War Games.
Ready Player One might as well be a Robert Zemeckis film.
Back to the Future.
The Newsroom.
Monster House. Monster House is not a Robert Zemeckis film. I just want to put that out there. I know now.
If you imagine in your shrimptastic, sexy little mind of every 80s, like, we gotta make the papers, David! And there's just, like, rooms filled with cubicles with people just typing away. Those are computer terminals. And they were popularized by a little tiny company called IBM.
Never heard
Irritable
of it.
bowel movement.
That is funny. That's really good.
Thank you, I'm very funny.
We've been new. IBM, back when it gave everyone a job, would have to supplement computers to all of their workers. Because, I can't... What the fuck else are you at IBM for? I know they had janitors. Never mind. The janitor...
School nurse.
The janitor probably had a computer.
Yes, the IBM school nurse.
The IBM school
Maybe every workplace would be a little better if there was a nurse on staff.
For real, though.
If I could tell the nurse that my tummy hurts, I think my day would get so much better. Maybe she'd let me
When
lay
you're
down.
having a rough time with your boss and you go to the workplace nurse's room and you're like, I don't feel so good. And she's like, why don't you lay down for a minute, Shug?
David, I can't move stalks today. My fingernails hurt. I need to go home. God.
The nurse said I have a 99.5 fever. She said I can go home. I'll get that paperwork to you tomorrow.
Oh my God.
I wish.
I wish. So many bits. All right. And IBM would gain the patent for the buckling spring switches, which were inside the Model M and F keyboards that became the industry standard thanks to IBM. And they produced a distinct sound Boy, that sounded great, Cass. Thank you. That was moist. That was a clicky, moist one, baby.
No, we're not. We're not starting this already. I hate it.
Canceled. Cloud boop. Boop.
You're spoiling it. Yeah. So, model M&F keyboards. I almost said M&M. MKs were. I'm sure IBM had their own special M&Ms for all I fucking know. MKs were expensive to manufacture and assemble, so as much as we all loved that clicky-clacky sound, it was just not sustainable at the time. So then they tried to transfer to membrane keyboards. A membrane keyboard, yes.
I have a question. If they were model M and F keyboards, why did we call them MKs? What does MK stand for?
Mechanical keyboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a little annoying because the same initials stand for membrane keyboard, so it's not like a universal search engine term. But yeah, I just have it in there because it was easier for me to type.
Okay.
Understandable.
That was a me thing, sorry. Mechanical keyboards were expensive, so then they were like, okay, we got to supplement these with membrane keyboards. Membrane keyboards have, like, no tactile feedback. It's 2 pieces of silicon sitting on top of each other with the circuit board underneath. Mm-hmm. And they will register a keystroke, but you won't feel it. And
the way I've started to think about this is the feeling of a DDR playmat. Like, it doesn't offer any feedback. You're just kind of relying on your own having touched it.
That's a perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't feel great, and it apparently can lead to, it's more likely to lead to repetitive injuries because there's no, like, pushback for your fingers. It's very jarring.
I'd assume that you would also probably subconsciously put more, like, effort.
Yeah, because you're thinking it didn't register, so you're like...
Yeah. So I could see it being a strain, yeah.
I have a little excerpt here from an archived New York Times article printed March 5th, 1981, entitled Technology, the Membrane Keyboard. Tease, read for me, please.
I will. Get your carpet square. The membrane threatens to overturn the traditional situation in the keyboard market, said Kenneth G. Worth, president of International Resource Development, Inc., a Connecticut consulting company that has studied keyboards. But a funny thing has happened to those flat buttons on the way to the new keyboard market. They are no longer flat. Typists, it seems, want keys to go down when they are struck. Unyielding keys tire the fingers, and unless they beep, as on some calculators, the flat keys don't let typists know the key has been activated.
So all that is to say, people did not like them. So to try to meet people, like consumers in the middle, they make chiclet keyboards.
I'm wondering if we will see in the coming years a pullback again from touchscreen typing. I mean, we already see it with iPads, right? Where you can get a keyboard extender for it. Because nobody likes typing on the iPad itself. And again, there's no tactile feedback with that. And it does tire your fingers out really quickly when you're forced to type like that. And I don't know about you guys, but I find myself when I'm typing on a touchscreen or even on my phone, I don't slide into the natural positioning that you would on a keyboard.
Your wrists
I find that like your wrists are weirdly elevated, and I find that like I'm a touch typist, like I don't need to look at my keyboard, but I end up like sort of like chicken pecking my way around the keyboard instead because like I want to be so exact, and I know I put more force behind it because the connection of my finger to the screen, like I want to feel like a bounce back, and I only get that if I put enough force behind my own fingers.
There's also a lot of like like maintenance wise long-term issues with having your screen also be your keyboard. Like God forbid you have a really strong hand and you bust up the screen, or it's just like you have to continuously clean it. I don't like the feeling of like the oils collecting on the screen. You could save more screen space by not having to access a keyboard at all. So there's a lot of cons.
The clack of cooling.
You do get that weird like on the on the iPad if you have it turned on, like the sound.
Oh yeah, if you have your noise on.
I can't even. Yeah, it's just. It's almost like the sound that villagers make in Animal Crossing.
Oh, Animalese, yeah.
Yeah, Animalese. So to try to meet consumers in the middle, they would go on to make the chiclet keyboard, which is, if you think to 2010 desktop Mac towers, they would come with these metal slated keyboards that had they still had click to them, but they're like kind of flat, and they're made of plastic, and there's like no number pad or anything like that, and they're very rectangular. It's still
very much the aesthetic of their keyboards today.
Yeah. That would count as a chiclet keyboard, and they are named chiclet keyboards after the chiclet candy-coated chewing gum, which is news to me. I didn't chew gum, so I was like, I thought they were just called
a little chiclet.
I don't know why things are named. I'm like, because they look like chiclet droppings. I don't fucking know. Like,
they look like poop.
They look like poop. By the late 80s, early 90s, dome switch keyboards would become the industry standard because they were super easy to mass produce for both an understandable and weird reason. When people were no longer, I feel like when technology was advancing, a room full of people typing suddenly became it was distracting for people now that there was this option to have a quiet keyboard. So they were preferred in that they didn't make a lot of noise. They weren't disruptive. That's why as we figured it out the other day, why they have computer rooms in libraries, because they can be pretty loud. They are a cross between a membrane keyboard and a mechanical switch keyboard, which basically just means that underneath the keycap of the keyboard that you are most likely using right now is a little upside down volcano shaped thing connecting to another volcano shaped mouth thing.
We don't want to go with the nuclear power plant illusion. Yeah, can I get that sound you made the first time around? What's it shaped like? Yeah, it's shaped.
It's shaped. And when the two connects, it depresses the rubber dome underneath, and it completes the circuit. And some of them also have scissor switches or X-shaped switches. It's the most universal standard. It is in your workspace everywhere. Now we're going to move on to different sizes of keyboards, because you may be thinking, well, it's just a keyboard. You're right, it is just a keyboard. It's not anything else. It's not a kazoo. It's not a trampoline. You
don't know my keyboard's life.
You could probably get a mod that had a kazoo on it. You just blew into it, I forget what that instrument's called.
With the little piano and the straw thing and
that'd be really good. If any Keebs are listening, make that. So that'd be a good idea.
Keyboard that's also an accordion.
Oh, but that's just me.
Your keyboard that's also an accordion?
Yes. You heard it here first.
Somebody has to blow you and press the right button.
Stop. I refrained from making a lesbian joke when we were talking about scissor switches, but no, I will not allow this.
Bah!
Oh my god.
Keys can also be shaped if you press the right buttons.
I sure
I don't have any more water. Oh no. All right.
Tell me how this is more explicit than the Monster Fucker episode. Riddle me that.
God.
It's because there's 3. Wait, are you? I forgot what Tis is a Virgo. Never mind. I was going to say there's 3 fire signs in the chat, so.
No.
That's why we got there.
I don't know what that means. That's illegal. Don't say those words to me.
Okay. So now.
Astrology? What the fuck is that?
We're going to get into the sizing charts. So.
Damn, love me a good beefy keyboard.
The keyboard that you think of in your mind, in your beautiful, beautiful little mind, is a 100% full-sized keyboard. Again, industry standard.
Big boy.
They're everywhere, baby. They got a numlock pad. They got a function row. F1 through F12. They got arrow keys. Data entry users and coders love them. Librarians love him. Anyone that needs a computer fucking loves these bad boys.
Tease loves them.
Tease love them. And they have so much real estate on the case that people can make modifications like dials for your volume, LED screens. There was a keyboard that had an LED of a little doggy that when you press the space bar, it would jump. When you pressed caps lock, it would bark, and so on and so forth. And that was on a 100% full-size keyboard. And just all kinds of little fun things that people can add to them. We then move on to the 100% /1. I don't want to say 1-800. It sounds like a phone number. 1800 compact version of the 100% sized keyboard. That is literally just what I talked about, except all the keys are smushed together, which makes just more sense in my head, but like, whatever. Everything's the same.
It's funny that makes more sense to you, because to me, that like ignites every little anxiety flare in my body. I'm like, no, I need them separate. I need them organized. I need, like, each of them to have their own little purposeful space.
It makes perfect sense why they physically are separated from each other, but I'm like, I could easily achieve that with having different keycap styles, and that's what I have that model, and that's what's going on with my baby. There's some keys that are a little different in shape. Enter backspace shift to accommodate the change. They save a little bit more space, but not too much. And I love it. And then the one down from that, the farther down we go, a couple of things you're gonna see commonplace in the keyboard market, which is 10 key less builds. That just refers to the numlock, the number pad area being chopped off. She's gone. There's 10 keys on that apparently, and they're bye-bye. And they're going to get smaller from here, really tiny. They're going to get more expensive, and they're going to get more technically hobbyist, because we're entering spaces where people are literally just trying to make a keyboard that is tiny enough to be nigh impossible, but still
to
works.
Function on it.
Yeah. So we have the 80% or the 87% TKL, which stands for 10 key less. Like I said, numpad, everything, all gone. Mac keyboards tend to be in this style. It's very popular with Macs. They save you more space. Very popular. A lot of like aesthetic YouTubers I see having these. Because a lot of people just don't really need the you have a row of numbers up top. Why would you?
People just don't appreciate the numpad. They don't
really
appreciate its potential.
I live and die for the numpad every day because of work. So.
She's so.
I imagine
she's so
you
functional.
do.
She's so purposeful.
It's so much easier to do like
she's so rectangle
records and shit with the numpad. Just instead of going up and hips scotching above your letters. Anyway. They're technically more ergonomic because instead of having to, if you are working on an 100% full size, you tend to have to center the whole thing in a way so that your hands are resting near like the YU area of the keyboard on the farther right side of the space bar. With this, you're smack dab in the center. A lot of touch typists would want you to be there. I forget what the positioning is for touch typists, but it's more optimal that way.
Well, you want your index fingers to always sort of rest on the F and the J key, and then fan out from there. Yeah. Right.
And then
that's why they got them little nubbins on them.
They got. Oh yeah, that's right.
Them.
They do. That's right.
Yeah.
Does mine have? No, it doesn't. I forgot about that. Yeah, they have little identifiers.
That's Keyboard 101, baby. Yeah. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Wow.
The next up, we have the 75% TKL, again, 10 key less. It's the same, it's just everything's been mushed even more closer together. The shift key starts to get really fucking weird, like shaped like a, I don't know, avocado. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just a weird shape. It's like tall instead of wide.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it's very bizarre, I think. No, mine doesn't have that, but they'll oftentimes, a lot of builds will, if you like buy a set of keycaps online, they will have a different set that accommodates those different sized shift keys. So you'll get doubles and be like, why did I get two? Because you might have a different configuration. We get to 65%, no function row. F1 through 12, bye. She gone. the arrow keys get really tiny. I think we all have keyboards right now. Well, maybe not Cass, but I know UTs who have this style where like they're like the chiclet sized for the arrow keys. They're really thin and like oddly spaced. It's like your fingers do like a crawling motion with your index finger and your ring finger versus just like a normal T-Rex claw that should be most natural to you. 65% are popular with laptop users. Again, this is before we even factor in stems and switches. So I imagine people are getting brown switches for when they're I hope they are for when they're at the coffee shop, because that's just fucking annoying. Then we get to the 60%. It's the same above. And now so both the 60% and the 65% are the FN key is now accommodating the function keys, and with 60% that now includes the arrow keys. So that means because those are gone, you have to activate this one key to access the mapping to F1 through F12. And that kind of becomes the puzzle for a lot of people that make their own builds with that, is like, how much can I put onto the FN key to carry the load of all of these missing functions? 60% are really popular with FPS gamers, supposedly also writers, but we don't know. You had some hot
Yeah, I don't
takes.
agree with that.
Yeah, like-
I can't imagine that. I wouldn't personally agree to that, but I'm clearly a person who likes a big keyboard, so.
Hell yeah.
I love to slap.
I love the room. I can't imagine not having my function keys, because the function keys also do so much of the workload for my computer itself, of like being able to quickly turn up and down volume, change the brightness on my setup, tab between different things. Be nice to your function key, you know? Like, get a whole row of them so you're not putting all that load on the little FN keys. She's trying her best, but you can't put a whole other keyboard on her. Be nice to her. Let it take a vacation.
That's so interesting to me, because I don't use any of my function keys on a Mac. It's literally just my volume keys that I use and the brightness on my laptop. You can also get gaming keypads, which is literally just the numlock. It's returned, but it's its own device. Really popular with artists so that they can map keystrokes to that when they're using their Cintiqs. And, you know, of course, gamers, FPF gamers. I said FPF. That is...
Not every artist has a Cintiq, though. But I know what you mean.
You know, like a tablet. Or,
yeah, just for your tablet. Or
literally,
just, in general, mapping things for your programs.
Literally anything. We get to the 40%, which is wild. It's literally only your alphabet keys.
Disgusting. And
like your essential functions like escape, backspace, arrow keys. That's it. I see a lot of hobbyists use these.
I saw arrow keys, parentheses left. I was like, why only the left key?
You can only turn right.
Lefting.
Listen,
Leftaroo.
Left turns waste gasoline. You spend forever idling, waiting to be able to making them.
You get the point. You don't press this way.
I feel like a 40% keyboard would also be great for a child.
You know, that's true. That's actually...
That is a good idea.
Not a bad idea. It's very much style over function. A lot of aesthetics are put into it. It's more about how it looks rather than how it actually works. I mean, not all of them, but you get a lot more. You don't have to worry about as many keys. You're like, I might as well make this look like wood. I don't know why it's doing that.
I'm going to carve this one out of cheese. It's only going to last 2 days.
My name is Noctis Lucius Caleb, and I love me a 40 style keyboard. For when I play my fishing mini games. Lastly, you get people making some weird shit. Like I saw a dude that had a giant keycap switch set. It was like the size of an ice cream sandwich, and when you clicked it, it took you to the Rickroll video. I do have it written down that it was the size of a Honeycrisp apple, which I think is actually a little bit more accurate. So big, fat.
That's a big cap.
Big fat. Only did one thing. So now we're gonna get to keyboard anatomy lingo. If you are like, okay, through all this whirlwind of a journey, I am intrigued by the keyboard. What do I need to know about her to get to know her, to become close and treat her right? Here are the things that she will say to you that you need to know. First example is the KRO, which stands for key rollover It's literally, I was like, wait, the O stands for something, right? It's literally just roll over. Which just is a fancy way of describing the process at which the amount of keys can be pressed on a keyboard all at the same time, and all of them register successfully on the keyboard. If you, at home right now, if you're not driving, if you're at a computer, if you just keyboard smash, just all over your keyboard, see how many you get. I think Tease was like consistently 4.
3.
Yeah, baby.
I love that you're
4.
just going into it with big fist.
eBay.
You look, please be careful you don't end your recording.
Oh Lord.
3. 4.
There you go.
It's like a child finger painting for the first time, like
Slap, slap, slap.
Most standard keyboards will, especially on membrane keyboards, have an on average 2 KRO or 3 KRO, meaning you can hit 3 or 2 keys at once and they will successfully register with your computer. Mechanical keyboards, and I would not want this, can reach up to 20 keys being hit at the same time. And that's how Neil Gaiman writes all of his novels.
How do you think people make words? Do you think we just hit all the letters at once and it figures out the word we want?
Yeah, that's what my computer does. I'm just like, good luck, Alice. Have at it.
Do you know how more powerful my key smashes would be? It'd be so much stronger.
I mean,
you'd have so much bottom energy.
It'd be so fucking funny if every time 20, you could smash all of the fingies on there and they would react, all of them, every single one. But that's not the normal. The common one for mechanical keyboards is 6 keys can be hit and they will be all recognized. And usually on USB interfaced keyboards, rather than Bluetooth, which has a latency issue, not as easily to communicate with the computer between the device and so on and so forth. Next, we're getting into actuation force. This one you are going to hear a lot, because this will tell you, this is the scientific term for, I press it down hard and it make clicky clack go happen. That is what actuation force is how hard do you need to press the key for it to register. Next we have bottoming out.
Now this often refers to when you've reached full penetration.
Oh my god!
And you kind of
I'm going to kill you!
Teeth muted themselves, but they shouted that they were going to kill me. I can't prove it, but it did just happen.
You became your icon for a minute. It had big turtle energy. It was... And bottoming out is when a switch is pushed. Wow, it really is what it says on the tin, huh? When a switch is pushed all the way down. When a sub is pushed all the way down. It's called bottoming out. And
you didn't even have to switch it to sub there. Switch is also an applicable term.
I forgot. I was like, something.
You forgot about the switches? The backbone of our society? Where would we be without the switches?
Listen, I get Helen Keller confused with Lisa Frank, so there's a lot of fumes running up here and nothing else. The next vocab word is ghosting, which is an unintended key press. So if you are sitting at your computer and you hit W and it goes O instead, that's ghosting, and that's not good.
Okay, I have a stupid question. Is that ghosting, or is ghosting when, like, you're not even engaging with your keyboard and another, like, a key, it just registers a key press?
I think that can apply to that, too. It's just literally an unintended key press. So if a key press is registered that you did not want it to do. So that could be regardless of whether you're there or not. Usually a sign of a malfunctioning circuit board.
Okay.
We get to the stem, which is just the name of, so in a switch, there's 2 parts that create the sound of the clicky clacky that we all know and love, which is the stem. It's this little cross-shaped piece of plastic underneath your keycap. And then underneath that is like there's like a mechanism of metal that snaps back after, a key switch has been hit. The stem is above that. That's the one you need to care about, because you have to have stems that are compatible with different types of keycaps, because that's literally they're like getting stabbed onto the stem.
Yeah, it's like two little puzzle pieces.
Exactly. Then we have the ANSI versus ISO, or American National Standard Institute versus International Organization for Standardization. This refers to the two widely used keyboard layouts. The American National Standard is mostly used in the West, and that covers the QWERTY that we talked about earlier. Then there's the International that usually covers Europe. So if you say, for example, you get a keyboard from Germany, it will have a different layout to the stems and the caps versus what you're going to get with the more westernized versions. So really that's just more important of knowing, again, compatibility. So if you get like a key set from, or switch set from like America, but you get a frame from like, you know, England or something, just making sure that they're compatible with each other. And lastly, the keycap. That's the shit on the top. It has the letters on it. It's got the Pikachu graphics you want. It's got the Sailor Moon sprinkles, whatever the fuck you enjoy, is sitting on top. We love it. They're so sexy. They're so hot. I have 3 different sets. I'm getting so sweaty when I talk about keycaps. The next important thing you need to know, next to all that is all well and good. But you don't necessarily have to pay attention to all of that. You can just leave that to whatever manufacturing company that you want. If you don't care about how it looks or how the layout goes. My elbow cracked and it was very loud. I don't know if it picked it up.
Oh, no.
The next thing, this is the most important thing. If you are looking into keyboards. Switches. If you care about the sound. If you don't care about the sound, then you want to think about all the things I told you earlier. And you're more of a visual person. The types of switches are in 3 broad categories, which then are broken into subcategories. We are only covering the first 3 because there are so many. I don't want to say thousands, but so many different subtypes of switches. And that is the clicky, tactile, and linear. Clicky refers to audible click with tactile bumps. So if you hit a key, it makes a big old sound, and it feels, there's a little bit of resistance when you push down, and it's so satisfying. We love to see it. And an example of those are Cherry MX Blues. Now, when I say these words, cherry, not in the food, but as in the weirdly named, which I think you had a theory about why tech is referred to, at least in keyboards, as food. Because of like...
Yeah, I'm wondering if... So not in reference to Cherry in particular because they've been around for so long, but I have a feeling that the way like keyboard companies are now naming their switches is maybe taking a note after, 1, the Cherry company, but also 2, after like the Android operating system naming conventions for phones, where like their stuff is like named like Sundae, ice cream, things like that. I don't know. I'm an iOS user.
And then there's, there's Apple. Apple.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I feel like they might know those. I don't know what, like OSs are named like Montana and like these other.
Oh, well, the Apple operating systems for desktops are all named after national parks.
Oh, yeah. I learned something new today. Very cool. Cherry refers to the company that is considered the industry standard for creating the stems and the switches, respectively, that are required to build the keyboard. Blues are the profiles used to identify between clicky, tactile, linear. So colors are they're very important to remember what they stand for. So Cherry MX Blues refer to a clicky switch, which is the one we just covered. Tactile is no sound, no audible click, but it has a tactile bump, so you get that feedback physically, that little kickback, but there's no sound. Cherry MX Browns would be an example of that. Lastly, you get linear, which is just...
It is notable, though, with the Browns. You do still get a sound.
Yes.
She still go clicky-clacky, but it is not to the degree of the others.
Exactly. Keep in mind, it is a mechanical keyboard. It's a machine, so it has physical parts inside. They're not, like, soundproof. I mean, I bet if you put a dampener in a build that had MX Browns, you'd get pretty dang quiet. But, it's never, like, perfectly silent. We'll get into this a little bit later, but obviously if you're thinking about like gamer keyboards, Razer makes their own switches. That is because the patent that Cherry had on switches has expired. So has
Only
also the
recently,
buckling
yeah.
spring. But you know what's funny? I don't hear about anybody trying to recreate buckling springs. And
It's probably too expensive.
It's just too expensive. They're like full on beasts, like the way that so just a little information that a modern age switch is usually made up of, there's like a little tiny spring in there, and then like all of those little clicky clacky metal parts. The buckling spring has this fucking massive coil inside of it. It's huge. It's all force that's helping make that tactile feedback come around. Lastly, there's linear, which is kind of self-explanatory. No audible click, no tactile bump. They don't make any sound.
Feels like hell. Hate it.
They will make noise, just not nearly as much as the other two. And Cherry MX Reds fall into that category. Then, of course, if you ever look any of these up, you'll find Cherry MX Greens, or you'll find there's all kinds of companies that are making their own switches now. So you could probably, if you're like, I like all those, but I kind of want a mixture of like no audible click, but something else. There's probably a subcategory you can find between the three. Now we're going to get into the types of keycaps themselves. These are really important because it's more about, we're getting into how do you want your keyboard to feel physically. Not just the tactile feedback and the sound, but like literally the texture of them. Keycaps are typically made up of either PBT or ABS plastics. ABS standing for acrylic. Do you guys want to? What do you want to try to pronounce these for me?
Acrylonitrile butadiene styrene plastic
for ABS, and then PBT, if you would.
Polybutylene terephthalate.
Pretty good. Yeah, I think Cass nailed it.
Cass is good at these things.
Hell yeah. The ABS plastic is cheap, easy to mass produce. Most office keyboards are made from this. They're fine.
She greasy and nasty. We can say it. We don't like her in this household.
There is a little bit of texture to them, but they wear down really easily.
It wears off so quickly.
Yeah.
So quickly.
If you've ever been at your job and you're in like the manager's office and the space bar has this weird glowing, puddling out shine to the space bar, it's probably ABS plastic.
I hate this. Stop speaking.
That's exactly what it's like, though. You just have this like perfect little orb that has worn away that catches the light on it, and it's like you see it on all like the center keys. And I know which keys I touch the most because I'm literally wearing off the registers on a set of keycaps that I got like I think 2 weeks ago.
God, your fingers are so strong.
I type a lot. These are PBT too, but I'm just very powerful.
Or you have like they're not double shot. They're probably double shot.
They're not double shot. They aren't.
PBT is more durable, and it tends to have a sandy, sandpapery feel to them. Not so abrasive that you'll hurt yourself, but there's a definite difference between the two. And
it's a nice satin finish.
It's widely considered superior, just because they last longer. Yeah. Double shot keycaps are very common. And it just refers to a long process that I just cannot cover in its entirety. But essentially, instead of doing one casting mold of plastic for a keycap, you do two to make it thicker. And they last a little bit longer. Yeah. So they tend to cost a little bit more, but it's usually worth the double shot. The last three... or the next two refer to the process in which ink is being transferred to the top of the keycap where the legends are, which is dye sublimation and pad printed caps. So if you think of like anytime a machine has to transfer a print to like a bowl and it's got that big marshmallow silicone thing that just ploops onto the ink and then ploops onto the giant bowl, it's doing the same thing to the keycaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also have like t-shirt transfer-esque versions.
Which, I mean, essentially the difference there, right, is that double shot is like your legend is actually plastic injected into your keycap. So it is a physical form that is within your keycap that, like, even if you're wearing away the surface of your keycap, that legend is still in there.
Correct.
But when you get into dye sublimation and pad printed stuff, it's just a small thing that is on the exterior of your keycap that your finger is coming into contact with, which means it can wear away really quickly if you're typing a lot. Like I said, they're either dye sublimation or pad printed. I'm not sure which, but like the legends on my keypad are wearing away after like 2 weeks at this point. I don't mind it. I don't need them there. But that is probably like one of the things you want to take into consideration.
It also allows for more color customizations. You can add more colors to the keycaps that you want. To be honest, I don't really pay attention to dye sublimate, like whether or not they're whatever, because that's getting into some really technical, like really refined how exactly I want my keyboard to look. But if it's all about aesthetics, then you want to pay attention to that. And lastly, there's laser etched. And it's the cheapest, most common form of implementing the legends onto keycap faces. And I believe it's literally like they etch it into the keycap and then squirt some ink in there. And then the last very important thing that you need to pay attention to is the keycap profiles. So this is more applicable if you say you've already gotten your keyboard and you want a new set of keycaps. You're going to want to pay attention to the keycap profile of the next set you get, because it refers to literally the height and the either the decline or the incline of the keycaps themselves. So some will have like little divots to kind of cushion your fingies. Others are just straight flat. Some are extremely thin. Some are very thick and hollow, and like the stem inside that's supposed to meet the plastic switch stem is very long. So there's a lot of room for the sound to travel inside the keycap and make it sound kind of hollow.
The other thing I learned too about keycap profiles that was important to keep in mind is because I like to mix and match keycap sets, and sometimes your keycap set will have a different height profile for every row on your keyboard to create a sort of natural valley in the center of your keyboard to guide your hands in there. But if you're mixing and matching with a set that has like totally standardized height profiles across the board where every key is the same profile, you're going to end up with keys that are like tall and flat next to your ones that are like relatively short and, you know, at an incline. So those are things to keep in mind as you're shopping. Or if you're only shopping for like one or two keycaps and you want them to blend in but be a different color, to make sure that they are the same height profile as your existing keycap set.
Exactly. And there are tons of different, so you could get like, you know, some keycaps. I think the taller ones tend to be double shots just because they're so chonky.
Yeah. I've also just made my own that are extra super tall so that they really stand up on my keyboard. And
did you 3D print them?
Your own.
No, I sculpted them out of epoxy sculpt. And I know that a lot of like artisan keycaps are even made with like polymer clay and stuff, because then you don't have to worry so much about. Here's the thing, if you happen to have like access to a laser or something, you need to be very careful with ABS and PBT because they are plastics, and I believe PBT does give off chlorine gases when you're carving it. Don't count me on that. It might not. It might be ABS that does that. Don't try and engrave either of them. Make something that you can adhere to the top of them so that you're not cutting into those keycaps themselves unless you have like proper protective equipment and everything. Just get some clay. Have fun with clay.
If you also are a big fan of resin casting, you can make keycaps out of those. You'll find a lot of them on Etsy where they cast like little figurines inside resin and then they sit on your escape key. Jelly caps are now becoming popular, which is like a silicone keycap, and they tend to be translucent. They're very, 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 very,
But they're not squishy.
They're not squishy.
I can't eat them?
No.
I want squishy keycaps.
What's the point?
I mean, not with that attitude. You could eat them if you wanted. If you just,
I mean, I could.
Don't tell teas to imbibe things that may or may not be toxic. We don't even know the half-life of silicone.
True. I would also love squishy keycap as well. I think that would be fun to
Don't call them jelly caps unless they have the consistency of jelly. God.
You get it.
Thank you.
Don't make them feel like boobs, because that's just gonna suck. That's just not gonna feel good on your fingers. If you're a long day of writing
I beg
an
to
essay,
differ.
You mean it's okay?
I probably would damage your fingers, though.
Homework for anyone with breasts. Try to type an essay on your boobs and see how long your fingers appreciate that whole nonsense.
Listen, I'm not asking them to be that squishy. I'm asking for like a thin layer maybe of silicone between my finger and the rigidity of the keycap. That's all.
Like
I'm
a
saying.
little hat. Like a little hat.
Like a thin little hat. Just a little bit of squish. A little bit of cushion.
Glaze. A little glaze on top of the key. Like
of the crispied cream keycap.
A little cute flan keycap.
I just remembered that my step-grandfather had a fuck it key on his keyboard, which was, I think, the backspace button. And then I thought he also had boob keyed caps, but I realized, no, he had a stress ball that was fashioned after a boob. So, all that is to say, Nica, I love keyboards. I love them so much. But is it a lonely world? Are there other people like me? Can I find love on the Keeb battlefield? And the answer is yes. There's a whole coven of folks that they just love them keyboards. And they're called Keebs. So if you're into anime and you would be a weeb, if you're into keyboards, you're a Keeb. Don't take that too seriously, because I don't actually see it used all that much, but it's just like a fun little thing they toss around on the Reddit. They seem to, the fandom of keyboards as we know it, so if you just open up TikTok and there's like keyboard stuff on there, and everyone's like, my new build. It seems to be, there's no one creator or one person that popularized the nostalgia of keyboards, because the air quotes person that did was a whole ass company, and it was not really like, it kind of feels like records where after they were gone, people were like, man, I really miss those. And now they're coming back. Like, my dad never would have guessed that vinyls would become a thing, and now they're like huge.
Yeah, and vinyl like kind of just got repopularized by the whole entire like indie and DIY scene type deal. So it doesn't surprise me that like a group of people in general who are nostalgic kind of like, it works as it's a movement. It's not just one person, but a whole movement.
I think there's a very natural overflow from people who appreciate computers and tech mods, where it's like if you're modding your Switch or something, you can very easily fall over into the like, I want to play with keyboard.
I was able to open up my keyboard because I had the tools left over from when I was really into switching up mods for the Switch cons.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you love to tinker, this is like the perfect field for you. And just everyone understands nostalgia too. It's just like everyone.
Oh yeah.
I think there's something that's really accessible about tinkering with a mechanical keyboard, because you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty to see really immediate results. You can just replace your keycaps and feel like you have done something that's like really intense but also really rewarding. And it's like, you have gotten into the mechanisms of your keyboard, but it's like, it's not necessarily asking you to open up your keyboard or deconstruct it or get into soldering or anything like that. And I think that's something that's really nice about it, is you can make something totally your own and still feel like, wow, I've really kind of got my little fingers in there, you know?
I feel like it's a really great entry point into tech mods in general. It's just like, I when I first opened up mine, because I already knew what they looked like on the inside, but like every build is a little bit different. I brain empty when I opened it. I was like, what if there's a sound dampener in there? There's not. It's really echoey. But you open it, it's literally just unless it depends if you get, there's two types of keyboards in general where they are either, you've got the switches on top and it's separated by a metal plate and then the circuit board underneath, or you'll get a build that has the switches soldered onto soldering. Well, I don't know where I get soldered from. Soldered onto the circuit board itself. So there's nothing separating them. And that's it. And then plastic. And then like there's like a little, there's like a battery for when it turns on. If it's mine's a Bluetooth and it charges with batteries. So there's like a little mechanism in there. Or if you have a USB, it has the USB port in there. But that's it. That's the whole machine. So it's really accessible. And it's literally a button. That's the whole ass thing it does. So you can really mess with it and experiment and not feel too overwhelmed, in my personal opinion. If you looked up the Google Trends for search histories of, I'm looking at a graph that had people searching up Cherry as in the company and then mechanical keyboards at the same time from January 1st to 2004 and then onward. Cherry, people Googling Cherry is mostly the same. I realize now because it's also a fucking food. So like,
yeah,
people are just looking up cherries.
People always, hey Siri, can my dog have cherries?
Siri, will a dog die if it eats a cherry? Are cherries good for me? So it's a straight line relatively. Mechanical keyboard searches, very low, and then right around February 2010, there's a little bit of an uptick, and then it slowly starts to rise. And then, wouldn't you know it, May 2020, we were all invited to a very special party. And it was the stay inside party.
Yeah.
And then it spikes in Google search terms.
Yeah.
And no one...
When you are home alone and you can click and clack as much as you want.
That's when I got mine. It was like a couple months in, and I was like, and I sent him to Kit. I was like, bro, you got to see these. And they were like, I had no idea. There's a whole world in here. And we got really excited. Kit has one. It's like a metal base, and it has LEDs underneath. And it's, I don't know, like they must have just gotten the meld of plastics right. You can still see through the keycap, but it's not completely translucent, because sometimes you kind of get like an exposed look to like really thin keycaps. And it comes with different patterns. You can click it and like the LEDs will do different little dances for you and shit like that. So good. A lot of people staying home and they're like, might as well fucking learn how to mod a keyboard. For a long time, cis gamer men love to fucking talk about keyboards.
Can we talk about the marketing that Razer did for the
Please tell me
longest time?
again. Please tell me again.
Because when I got my first mechanical keyboard, it was the Razer Rose Quartz Edition, and I'm still using her today because I like the color pink. And it came, and I opened up the box, and it's like, congratulations, you're entering the battlefield with the most elite weapon at your disposal. And it's like, Jeremy, this is a keyboard. It's like, you'll have the precision power of any elite sniper on the field. Your combatants will fall before you. And it's like, hey, Razer, this ain't it. Stop
using this keyboard.
Buckle the fuck up, gamers.
Fiction.
Buckle the fuck up. Get your gamer gummies, shove them up your ass, and get that Razer keyboard out.
I'm writing
got
about
some
men
FPS
touching
games.
PPs. The only combatants I'm shooting down are with hot spurts of cum.
And then I go on my private Twitter, and then I write every embarrassing thought I ever thought.
A gamer, like, cleaning their fingers and, like, using,
That's
like,
me.
a little
No, there's
nozzle.
Cheeto dust in those nasty things. As somebody who's cleaned keyboards.
They put a little gentle dusting of Cheeto on there, and then they crack their knuckles and they start typing out every single thought they've ever had to Twitter.
That's how we got to where we are today, and it's a calamity. So
there's a ton of memes about people being like, time to clean my keyboard, and then they literally, before they've even undone anything, they just turn it over and smack it on the back, and like a sand dune comes out of it. Like
me.
It's like when you clean a toaster.
Yeah.
It really is. I'm like, I'm clean. Like, I know I eat at my desk, but I'm not like a really messy person. And then like, I'll have to move a bunch of things, and I accidentally turn my keyboard over as I'm like moving it out of the way. And I'm like, oh no.
There's so much of Nica inside this keyboard.
There's so much of Eskel inside my keyboard.
Same.
so much CJ Lewis in that keyboard. So much CJ. As it's gotten more accessible for people that aren't cis male gamers, I see a lot of like bubblegum gamer girls doing like the Sailor Moon. It's Diva or Sailor Moon or like what are other like pink aesthetic like fandom.
There's literally
Cardcaptor
anything
Sakura.
relating to Sanrio. I mean, anything Pokemon,
Animal Crossing,
Cherry Blossoms, Kirby.
Oh yeah.
The Pink himself.
There was
my
a
good
Kirby
pal
Keycap.
Kirby.
It was very good. And just we kind of covered it earlier, but people love to tinker. They love to customize things, and this is an object that you are going to be using seemingly every single day. You might as well make it fun. And there are some. It feels weird to call it a fandom. It's because it's like not exactly.
It's a hobby.
Yeah,
it's a
hobbyists.
Yeah.
But there's a community still, and there is, like every community, there's some not so great aspects of it, like gatekeeping sound. So we are all very passionate about it in this house, but keyboard elitists will be like, if your keyboard doesn't have the thock, then it's not a good keyboard, or you're not like taking care of your keyboard right. You gotta lube all the switches all the time, and you've gotta kiss every one, and then it'll make a good, thick, creamy sound. And it's like,
I hate that they say creamy.
And it's like,
don't say those
you
words
sound
again.
nuts. So it's not exactly correct. There is a link provided of a gentleman that recorded various switch types that were all used within the same frame of a keyboard. He only swapped out the switches. The keycaps were the same room, the same recording setup, so that you can kind of get an idea that there are subtle differences. They're not crazy, but there are subtle differences.
May I go on my little spiel?
Please do.
Yeah, okay. So, with the gatekeeping aspect, I was hurt. I was deeply hurt. I was attacked. I think the only thing I want to say is if you are getting interested in keyboards, be wary of placing too much stock into quote-unquote sound tests that people post, because what you have to understand about sound is that it is incredibly dependent upon its environment. So, a keyboard that sounds beautiful and creamy and thocky and thick in a video, you might buy all of the exact same parts and you might get it to your house and you might set it up and go through all of this effort, and it can sound nothing like that video, because sound is going to be affected by the desk it's being typed on. If there's a desk mat present, it's going to be affected by the mic that's being recorded on, the temperature of the room, the literal elevation of the home where it's being recorded, the sort of like white noise that occupies that room. All of that is going to affect what that keyboard actually sounds like when it gets to your house. So, be wary of sound tests. Don't put too much stock in them. And don't put too much stock into people saying, like, you need to get a keyboard that sounds exactly like this. It can be a good baseline or rough reference, I think, but it shouldn't dictate your decisions, especially when we're talking about how expensive some of those builds can get. You might be able to get your keyboard to sound exactly like that video. Also, the headphones you're listening on or the speakers you're listening on are going to impact wildly how that sound comes out to you. But you might be able to get that sound by putting a fucking piece of styrofoam in your keyboard. Like...
The tough thing about keyboards is that they are it's a physical thing. So if you say, for example, when I was going through my keyboard journey, it was heavy lockdown. So we couldn't really go to Best Buy and touch all the fucking keyboards because there was a pandemic. So
there still is.
There still is.
Yeah.
There still is.
I have a weird question.
Yes.
Do keyboards get warm if they have lights in them?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about computers. Like, computers get warm, obviously, like, from fans and humming and stuff like that.
I have LEDs in my keyboard, and I've had them on all the time before. It doesn't get, like, warm or hot to the touch.
Wow.
Yeah, it won't burn you or anything.
It's a very small, low-power light.
Interesting, because I was thinking about, like, do keyboards get warm? Do keyboards get warm? And then I was like, my keyboard at work doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, why would you think a keyboard gets warm? So now I just had to ask because I couldn't stop.
I can
thinking
only
about it.
imagine it would never be a heat that would like cause you to be uncomfortable or feel.
That you could sense.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
burn the veritable styrofoam
Exactly.
or cardboard
Yeah.
in it. Yeah, which is exactly what
Like,
I
if you're
had
gonna shove
worried about
newspaper
initially.
in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If that is happening, then you need to ditch the keyboard immediately because that means there's
Yeah.
an electrical issue that should not be there. So,
Yeah.
Yup.
dear listener, please don't do if you're like, oh, it's hot because it's a tech thing. No, it's bad. It's bad. And it's in plastic most likely, so get rid of it.
Yeah.
The only thing that should really matter to you is deciding if a keyboard is something that you want to visually appeal to you, or there is a tactile feeling that you enjoy. There's no right way to have a keyboard. It just depends on what you want it to do. If you want it to be pretty and you don't fucking care about the switches, then you don't have to worry about a sound dampener.
But you can
probably
get both. You can get a keyboard
Yeah.
that feels amazing to you and looks amazing to you.
You
It's not like
can.
an either or thing, but it's
Exactly.
about you
Yeah.
and being for you, and not weird people on the internet who are like, "How creamy are your switches? Did you lube them?"
I'm only
Stop saying
here
words.
to say that it's in neither direction. There's no I remember what I was going to say. The point is that there's no build that you can buy that will be, air quotes, better sounding than other keyboards. The only choices you have in terms of sound are the switch and how loud it is, so the clicky clacky, or how empty you want the sound to be. If you put a sound dampener, like a piece of cardboard or styrofoam or anything, what it does is it just takes the echo. There's like a bit of an echo in the keycap because it's empty. There's not a lot of shit going on in there. And I find that appealing. I like that sound of it being kind of solid. But that's something you can do yourself. You can put that in if you want, or you just buy a build that already has like styrofoam in there or something like that. There's no super special technique into building the keyboard itself that just suddenly makes it like sound like a choo-choo train. I don't fucking know. Like you only have so many choices. So when people talk about it being thocky or creamy or thick sounding, it's more of them looking into it a little too hard and being like, oh yeah, I can hear the subtle differences. Like there are differences, but it's not that intense. And it's
about what you prefer as a person who's going to be using this keyboard and hearing it.
It's not that expansive. It's not, it has the intricacies of an instrument in that it is built, it is something that is built, but it's not that nuanced as an instrument. So, and it's not supposed to be because it's not a fucking instrument. It's a keyboard. So there's a little bit of sound gatekeeping, but it really doesn't, it's not a huge thing to worry about. If it works and it does what you want it to do, congrats, you've got a great keyboard. I will say, so we're going to get into pricing briefly. You're going to see some builds, like there are some keyboards that are like $500. And you are mostly paying for the material that the case is made out of. So there are cases that are metal, like the one I told you about that my friend has. That isn't necessary. It does make the keyboard feel heavier. Although granted, the plastics that they use to make the cases tend to already feel pretty heavy anyway. So I definitely don't enjoy a keyboard that feels extremely light. Like it's just I know it's not gonna fly off my desk, but like my sensory seeking thing is I like things with weight and that they feel like they're there. You can get builds that have those mods like the volume buttons or LEDs, although LEDs tend to not really be that expensive. Like Razer keyboards are not that expensive, even though they got the LEDs in there. Logitech keyboards like $20 or whatever. It is up to your discretion if you want to get something that has a lot of money in it, or it's either the money's either going, like I said, to the material of the case or how fancy the keycaps are. So like if they're like a weird shape, like ones that are getting really popular are ones that actually look like typewriters. So they have the rounded keycaps to simulate that. Those can be pretty pricey. I did see you should never buy a keyboard that's $1,000. There's just no reason. There's no reason. And I saw one on TikTok called the Sakabato FE, and it was entirely metal. You can get keycaps that are made of metal and wood. I cannot attest them. I have no idea what the fuck they're like. Tease imitating like Bigfoot steps, like a god. I
don't talk this whole episode except to make dumbass noises.
That's why I appreciate you, Tease.
Thank you.
You're here to bring some life
you.
into the keyboard.
Thank you.
It was like gold and ugly, and it must have weighed a lot. And you had to clean it constantly because it would fucking you got oily fingers. I'm sorry to break it to you, but you got oily fingers.
When you have to put on your delicate little bell tolling gloves to type on your keyboard.
When I did research and had to go to the Yale Beinecke, that special library with the quartz windows, so like actual sunlight doesn't fully get in. I got to go to that library when I was doing research during my fellowship in my undergrad, and they would give you a cloth covered chain and a pair of gloves and a little like foam block so you could actually perch up the book and then hold the pages down with the chain, and then you had to wear the gloves so your oils from your fingers wouldn't get on the page and ruin the paper and ink.
Holy shit.
That's us with keyboards.
Holy shit. Can I say, I also found Book Talk, and they have their own elitist thing where they're like, the proper way you should remove a book from a bookshelf, do not take it by the spine. You grab it with both hands. When you put it down on the table, you do not rest your thumb on the spine inside to separate the pages.
Antique books,
you
sure.
them gently after each page. I'm like, bitch, I'm on the run. Why did I say that?
Me Bane busting fucking Batman's back, but with the spine of a book. Like,
I like when books get kind of fluttered out after the use and like the spine cracks. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And it came with a gold paperweight with the Akatsuki symbol on it. And it says in my notes, I fucking hated it. It was so ugly. And the only beef I found was two preteens on TikTok that were selling their own builds of keyboards, beefing with each other, claiming that each other's products were faulty and bad. And it was so fucking funny. And it just felt like the keyboard equivalent of like, what will you learn? What will you learn? It's just like what a weird niche. Like,
when are we gonna put like social media behind an age wall? Like, you know what? Yeah, that's better. Yeah. Just get rid of social media.
Agreed.
As Griffin said, I wish I could put a website in timeout. Put TikTok in timeout, please. There's and I also saw a keyboard with SpongeBob keycaps, and it was great, and it was grand, and it was lovely. We love that for him. Some silly terms I saw on the Reddit that probably really don't matter to you, but they gave me a good chuckle in my black little heart. Cloud of boobs, which is slang for the experience of typing on cherry reds, which if you remember we talked about earlier, they make no sound and they have no tactile bump.
It's not at all what that's like. It's not.
I don't believe
I'm sorry. We tested it the other night when we recorded, and it's not at all like that.
Resistance. I don't know what they're talking. Maybe it's because I'm wearing a bra.
For science, I gotta tell.
It's just not the same.
There's still a little bit of resistance. People don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
As Cass said, this sounds like someone who's never touched a boob.
Yeah. No.
Person,
I
if you're
stand by
listening that wrote that.
It's like typing on a cloud of boobs. Have you touched a boob before? Have you tried typing on a boob before? Draw a little QWERTY keyboard.
I think is very apt for how I feel about that. We have the McRip effect, which is when a small defect is blown out of proportion or later proved to be illusionary or false by keyboard science. I have no idea where the McRip came from. I wish I knew the beef behind that one. And then we've got the Topre fart. Topre is a brand, and it is the sticky sound. Okay, first off, farts are not sticky. I don't know. Anyway, the sticky sound.
No, yes, they can be. Farts can be sticky. Please continue.
They can be. Not all the time. The sticky sound you sometimes get from a Topre rubber dome. Not in all caps, the clack sound you get from the key return, and that is minimized in the HHKB silent designs by foam pads. Ripster guide. Don't know what that means. And sometimes people say that they're keying, as in keyboards, but they're kidding, as keying. And I thought that was very cute. There are keyboard meetups that happen all over the world. No key cons yet. And, you know, upon thinking on it, I was like, they probably don't need a key con. Like, they're so frequent in these small towns and, like, cities. It's just not necessary. They're frequent enough.
Given enough time, humans simply reinvent the World's Fair.
Yeah. They are so charming and wholesome and lovely. I've watched a couple videos of them. One was in LA, one was in Sydney, Australia, one was in Columbus, Ohio, all before and after, air quotes, the pandemic. And people just gather around. They show off their own personal builds that they've made that they're really proud of on like these little shitty vocab index cards. You can pick them up, you can touch them. They most likely have a sanitation station for when you do that. You've got companies there that are advertising group buys, which is just another word for a crowdfunding for a specific build and seeing if people are interested. Different companies showing newer models that are on the market. And they have raffles for winning a special, maybe like someone is selling their brand there, like a small creator that they can win. And it's just a bunch of people getting really excited about keyboards. And I think that's so cute and sweet. And everyone just seems really respectful. And they're just like, wow, look at the shape of this. Like one dude was selling a keyboard that had a frame designed after Pikachu's silhouette. And there's the Ditto keyboard, as we all know and love. Keeb Talk is a thing. It's just Keeb stuff on TikTok. And for whatever reason, keyboards tend to be named after foods. We already posited a theory on that. I got into keyboards because I struggle with I like doing projects. I'm an artist. I love to do things, but my brain struggles with the process that's required to complete the thing that I want to make. And that requires sitting at the desk and thinking and writing things out. And I fucking hate doing that. But it's required if I want to make, say, a Princess Tutu webcomic, for example. So if I have a keyboard that reminds me of being in my dad's home office, or it makes me feel like I'm a little secretary, and it kind of puts me in this like sort of role play mind set, it just makes it easier for me to sit and do the hard thing. And I love the feeling of the click and the clack and the sound that it makes. And it's just really helpful for me. And it seems to be really, mechanical keyboards in general seem to be helpful for people that have repetitive stress injuries or carpal tunnel, people that just want a reason to be happy and enjoy something. And I just think it's a weird place that I didn't know existed until this year. And I'm glad I found it. And I won't go through it, but I found a Keycap forum from 2015 of people being asked, well, what got you into the keyboard hobby? And it was anything from like, someone's like, I was really getting in Doom, and I need to use my WASD keys for a specific move, but I use them so much my fucking laptop died, and like my keyboard, I need to replace the keyboard. And then, like, someone who's like, my wife spilt my beer on my $20 Logitech keyboard. And I found the world of keyboards, and I never looked back. And, like, people who do IT work that are going to be at their computers for 12 plus hours a day. So
fountain pens.
That's it. If you yourself, dear listener, wish to get a keyboard after all of this, there's a link somewhere in the universe to mechanicalkeyboards.com. It's where I bought my first keyboard. It's a great resource for if you're not sure what you're looking for in a keyboard. They explain to you what switches mean in terms of like the feedback they're going to give you, because there's more than just the Cherry, MX Blues, and everything that we went through. Different brands, and they're all very reliable, like Ducky, Topre. Well, I'm not sure. I think Topre makes mechanical keyboards, and just like other brands that are very reliable. Different price ranges. Some are in stock, some are not. Although I think because of the supply chain issue we're having right now, it maybe not be the best time to go looking. But
I miss when the boat was stuck. It felt like a good couple of days. I know we are reaping the rewards, but I want the boat stuck again. Put him back. Put the boat back. Nica, can you put the boat back?
There's Keeb Reddit, or Mechanical Keyboard Reddit, and there's just people reviewing builds that they've bought, and just like it seems like a very amicable community, and there's just tons of resources. Where I got a lot of my info from was from the wiki. The Reddit. And lastly, there's 2 keyboard simulators you can look at, kbs.im or Keyboard Simulator.xyz. And those are literally like me, if you couldn't physically go somewhere and test out a keyboard, these will simulate the sound of a switch type and the physical look of the build. And they had like milkshake switches that I never heard of before that were in there. And just showing you physically, because I know I struggle with, like, you could tell me something is, like, 6 feet tall, and I'm like, that's one whole Tom Hiddleston. That's how I literally measure things.
Is he only 6 foot?
No, he's probably, it's a rough example, but, like, if you tell me something is a certain height, I'm like, okay, but how many, like, I don't know, cherry colas is that? Like, I'm just bad with visualizing.
I understand. Yeah.
So these will help you with that. And
all of those links will be included in the show notes down below.
And that's it. I hope this was informative and helpful, and I hope if you were thinking about keyboards that it's now less intimidating. And Tees is going to get one day, and it's going to be great, and it's going to have MX.
I should.
Yeah.
I should, actually. Like, I have a flat boy keyboard, and I know that's not good for wrists and stuff like that. So. But I love to lay in bed on my laptop, so...
Well, Nica, thank you very much for joining us. You are an animator and an artist, and you take commissions. Where can people find your work at?
You can find me at Tumblr and Twitter at Turian Mailman, which is spelled Turian Mailman, Mailman. I have a commissions page at turianmailman.tumblr.com/commissions, and that's where you'll find all the information. I have to make a new pinned tweet, but yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah. If you enjoyed the episode, consider giving Nica a follow, because we love her so very much and she does amazing work. Also consider maybe leaving a review for the show on Apple Podcasts, because that helps more people find the show. But listening is also just a really great way to support us. Share us with a friend. If you're interested in throwing a couple bucks our way, we have a Patreon and a Ko-fi. On Patreon, we do a bunch of fun little bonus episodes at least once a month. So it's a cool place to check us out and get involved with a relatively small community, but you get to help decide future episode ideas. We're on both of those platforms at Authors Note Pod, and you can find all the information about finding us across the internet at authorsnotepod.com. My name is Cass, and you can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet at Valhethella. That's VALHETHELLA. Tees, where can people get more of you at?
You could find me in so many places, like on Twitter, which is Vicuña, that's VICUNAD. You could find me on the streets of Tetris 99, where I'm kicking your ass under Tees. I wish you could share Tetris 99 profiles with people. I would love that. Anyway, you could also find me on the Fresh Podcast Market, a real podcast about fake podcasts. You can find me at Fandom Spotlight, which is a pop culture news and review site, and I write a lot of fun things about video games and anime and stuff like that. Our theme music was done by James Yaiullo, and you could find him on Bandcamp under James Y. And Cass, who did our cover art?
Our cover art is done by the wonderful, the ineffable, the incredible, the indelible Nyaliest. You can find her pretty much everywhere at NYALLIEST. She talks a lot about Final Fantasy 14 on Twitter. That's great. Love her.
Love
Don't know
her.
what I would do without
Big
my
fan
son.
of her work.
A jewel.
Perfect. Incredible. Just love everything about her. Tease, you thought you fucking escaped, and you kinda did, because this week I must ask you, Nica, what's something that doesn't have a fandom that you wish did?
Nica getting a dresser.
Damn, I'm a part of the Nica, and I hope
and
Nica
knowing
gets a
how
dresser
to
phantom.
knowing how to work GarageBand successfully.
Big fan of those phantoms. This
Big
week.
fan joining today. What's up? Everybody join the Nica Learns How to Use GarageBand and Nica Gets a Dresser fandoms. We'll call ourselves Drawers and
The Nica-nators.
the Nettitors.
Oh my
The
god!
Nettitors.
The
All right.
Nettitor.
The ship name is Nica X Scams GarageBand.
Bye. Okay, enough.